John Busbee with a Culture Buzz, and it's been a while, and it's not because I haven't wanted to talk to this woman, but Dr. Tracy Wylin is back with us. And if you go to her website, Tracy Weiland, TracyWylen.com, that is your gateway to such a wonderful wealth of resources and information. And I think this woman is on a mission to help. I'm going to just get right to that. But what she has done here, we're talking specifically, and I'm going to let her talk more specifically, but she has some great perspectives that are so relevant for this month because it is Women's History Month. And we probably should correct that, Tracy. Women's Herstory Month. Wouldn't that be more appropriate?
I would think so. But
I don't know. You have such a varied and wonderful background. If you were to have someone that came out of a locked room after being in there for a long time and said, I don't know who Tracy Wylin is. Who's this Dr. Wylin? How would you describe yourself in kind of a brief way?
I guess I'm a global speaker and researcher, and I study the impact of technology on society, work, women's leadership, and careers. And my background is that I've been in executive positions. I live in Silicon Valley, so I've been in executive positions at Apple, HP, and Cisco. But while doing that, I was also doing research at Stanford University on these subjects. And as a result of that, I've authored over 11 books and have taught and done a number of things as a result of those efforts.
Well, yeah, and you're a wonderfully driven, and I use that combination of words purposefully, a wonderfully driven person because you want to get people engaged, aware, and informed. And your focus, I mean, you're a constant blogger because you realize more than most people do that information keeps evolving on such a quick basis. To do it just in a book format, it's not as timely or as efficient as the blog format. And what really caught my attention was when a publicist said, you really should talk to Dr. Tracy Wylin about her new blog, Here Come Z Women.
Yes, and I really appreciate that because the world is changing very rapidly, and that's part of what I look at as technology is just, created a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and digital world for us. And blogging has become a very fast way for us to really disperse a lot of information more quickly than a book. Although books, there are plenty of ways to get to them today too, is through ebooks and publishing faster cycles. But to me, a blog just sort of you can hit the elements.
And I don't want to downplay your books because your books are wonderful resources still and will continue to be so. But I know that you're almost compelled to connect and kind of lay a strategy for not just for women, but for kind of a new approach to the future as you see it. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, maybe not the right thing, but gender isn't as important as character traits, is it?
Right. So it is a very good point. I am compelled I'm very interested in making sure that people who are living much longer today, many people, well over 100, and so as a result of that, they're going to be working longer. And in a research study I did, we found that, when I asked people about the thought of working to 100, what did that mean to them? And what they realize is in order to live to 100, you have to be able to afford to live to 100, which means you're going to be working 50 to 70 years. And that's mind-boggling for a lot of people because it means if you're going to work for 50 to 70 years, you'll have to constantly either reinvent yourself, educate yourself, learn about technologies, and perhaps at some point be an independent, worker or entrepreneur. And I think all of these elements is very important for people to realize just so they can afford to retire and have a great life.
Oh, and those are great talking points right there because I think, and again, I consider myself kind of a cultural and social observer. I'm not as smart as you. I'm a little Iowa farm kid, but I really enjoy watching the fact that people are more and more tuning into that what you just talked about, the fact that they're working time is going to be stretched just to meet their living time. And in doing so, they need to zero more in on the passions of what motivates them, what keeps them engaged, what keeps them curious, what keeps them learning every day, instead of punching the clock for 25 or 30 years, getting the gold watch and retiring.
Yes, and unfortunately, if you think about that work model in an office, the younger generations, I don't even think they can identify with that, because so many of them have grown up today being very digital, working off of 5 screens, some say, your iPhone, your pad, your multiple devices, and connecting with people all over the world instantaneously. So it would be mind-boggling to them to even think about driving to a physical space to see a very small set of people to work with, when it would be far more efficient to work from wherever you are off of your multiple screens. And so, I think our younger generation actually has this advantage of understanding that you can actually be very highly productive and connected and still be entrepreneurial and work from remote locations if you have this technology base, where those of us who think about the physical office, we're limiting ourselves in so many different ways. So it is a very good point.
And yeah, that is wonderful, a wonderful observation you shared with us there, because it really does illuminate the fact that that old model, kind of an archaic, almost calcified model, definitely sets things up to be very gender, almost confrontational, instead of what I'm watching the younger. I just get so excited when I see young people with the little light bulbs going off in their eyes, and they get excited because they are connecting with people based on what that other person or those other groups of people are bringing to that particular project or concept or movement. It's exciting.
Yes, it is. And I would say that the notion of gender, the notion of race, the notion of religion, a lot of this is not understood by young people. And I think that's refreshing, because a lot of the older generations have been brought up in different contexts. And I would agree with you, when you go to work, and the conservative hierarchical firms have instruction in a way that I would say is not really conducive to women's success. However, in today's society, women and men and young people actually are starting businesses off of this internet platform at a very young age and being able to secure funding. And you don't even know who they are. In fact, you don't even care who they are, because they're just, they could be just a digital name. And I think that's what's exciting, is because you can connect with people, do business with people, and they may never even know what your race is, what your religion is, or your gender is. And that, to me, is very positive.
Well, you can focus right into the core values of what a person brings to any connection, which is wonderful. Well, I'm going to let you kind of wrap things up and pull the lasso in a little tighter, because I knew I'd do this. I confess I have creative ADHD. And when I talk to someone like you, I'm just seeing so many squirrels running across the yard in so many directions. I want to follow them all. But you're going to help me focus here, because we want to talk about Gen Z and the fact it is Women's Herstory Month, and some prime things. Folks, I want to tell you again, TracyWyland.com, that is your website of so much wonderful information. Set yourself up with some time just to explore, to learn, to share. Her website, TracyWylen.com. Dr. Tracy Wylin is an amazing woman, amazing sharer, an amazing stimulator of your mind and what can be. So I'm going to let you launch off into some of the things you want to talk about, this new blog you're doing. Here comes Z Women.
Sure, and I appreciate that. So, let me just define what the Z generation is, because generations are really defined by more of what they share rather than a hard cutoff date. But most people are suggesting that Gen Z is those who were born in 1995 or later. So in today's terms, that would be age 20, or maybe this year 21 and younger. So that's the population which is in high school, some are in college, some are working, and some are voting. And what really defines them is they have a very different background than previous generations. They come from mixed families. In fact, over 50% have a hybrid background. They grew up with terrorism, cyber attacks, recession, and privacy issues, immersive technologies, and learning from things such as YouTube and using, a lot of social media. So this generation is projected to be, because it's about 26% of the population now, expected to grow to be about 40% of the population by 2020, is expected to be more self-directed, concerned about the future, entrepreneurial, technical, and pragmatic than the previous generation, which is our millennial generation, or some call Generation Y. And a lot of it is just the factor of how they grew up. If they had parents who have lost their jobs, they're going to be much more concerned about making sure they have a job. If they had millennial siblings or Generation Y siblings who went to college and were not able to get a job, they're going to be a little more pragmatic about their approach towards work. And many of these students have actually grown up within school now, doing a lot of community outreach, starting their own businesses, and a lot of them actually have been homeschooled. So it's a different generation altogether than the last generation. So what we expect from the women is, these women will be less likely to identify with the roles and traditions of women from previous generations. I actually think they will be gender agnostic, and would expect equality as the norm, not an exception. And when I try to give an illustration of the generations and gender in something that people can identify with, I talk about the show Modern Family, because I think a lot of people know that show. And Haley Dunphy, right, she's our millennial girl, and she's always hanging out with her friends, and she went to school maybe, then didn't, then had a hard time getting a job. But Alex Dunphy, which is our Z girl, she's very thoughtful about her career, about her schooling, about science and technology, and very industrious. And I think, that kind of shows the difference between the two generations. And then the younger brother is actually also a Gen Z, and he's quite different than Alex, and not as focused. So, we expect that these women coming out are going to be very technical, very focused, and very pragmatic.
It's exciting to see that is what is manifesting now in the world as the next generation positions itself for taking over, for becoming the leaders. Because as a baby boomer myself, I was worried a few decades ago, and I was concerned about where things were going, and quite honestly, I'm becoming more optimistic as time goes on. There's still a lot of scary things out there, but these young people are really understanding things, and what you've done is you've provided a forum where people can come and really start better understanding those roles, those opportunities, those directions that are happening, and that is wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things, because what I think all of us have to be aware of from older generations is that our own, unconscious biases as we raise children or as we teach children.
Yes.
And this is what I remind, like teachers is, make sure that you focus on both boys and girls, the same. You want these young women to have the confidence the same as the young gentlemen. You want girls to take healthy risk-taking, and you want girls to be participating in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I am very inspired because I see so many things like the makers movement in schools now, where both young boys and girls have hands-on making things out of technology, or going to tech camps. So that to me is excellent. And if you have unconscious biases, which is understandable because of how each of us were raised, try to introduce young people to other young people who are doing incredible things, because they will easily learn when they see the roadmap of a young person actually doing something that they could see themselves doing.
Well, it's all amazing stuff. And as I mentioned a couple of times, folks, go to Dr. Tracy Wylin's website, www.tracywylin.com, TRACEYWYLEN.com, and delve into it yourself. I don't care what age you are. I can see a nonagenarian, a centurion, enjoying some of the content, all of the content there, because it's information. The more you know about the next generations coming up, the current generations that you can suggest that Z-Gen person reads, share that. That's really the best thing you can do for the future of our world. And Dr. Tracy Wylin is just a wonder at concisely crafting the language and understanding the concepts as they're coming out. If I had accompaniment, I'd be singing your praises, Dr. Tracy Weiland, right now. That's all there is to it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and thank you for including me with your guests on your show.
Oh, it's always an honor. I would love to continue the dialogue. We waited much too long before I was able to connect with you again, but you have so much that is relevant that I don't need a book to share you with my audiences. So maybe down the road here soon, we can reconnect and share more insights, because we have just opened a library, the one book in a library filled of great stuff. Go to TracyWyland.com, folks, and become engaged in one of the most wonderful thinkers in our country today. She has much to share with you and a lot of people you know. I'm sure of that. Tracy, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Take care.